the results of a feasibility analysis that Department of Sanitation asked us being Envac, I'm the U.S. representative for Envac, which is the subsidiary company that built AVAC system. Central SUG was the original name, and it became Envac. And Envac now has offices and installations all over the world. We've got about 700 installations globally. This is the star of the show, the AVAC system, in terms of our installation or constellation of systems, because it is still working and still efficiently handling the mixed waste that the island generates. And more interestingly, and I think impressive, is the fact that it's also still functioning in terms of being able to pick up the new buildings on the island. So from the point of view of the system, it's a huge success story from our point of view. What it doesn't have, and what the problem with being the first, it's the same for our subway system. New York was the first, or among the first with a subway system. So when you're in the avant-garde, you're new and exciting in the beginning, but then the industry catches up with you. So there are lots of things that have happened with the pneumatic tube industry that Roosevelt Island community hasn't benefited from. If you recall, in about 2011, there was a guy named Ben Miller and Juliet Spertus, and they were working with the City College, the Urban Transportation Research Council. They had gotten a grant from the state to study how to get more trucks off the road, and they were looking at it from the perspective of getting garbage trucks off the road. So they studied a couple of things, but among the things they studied was the upgrade of this AVAC system. Their report came out in 2013. It was an extraordinarily impressive and ambitious report, but ultimately it would have been $24 million plus to implement everything that they were talking about. And they were talking about really exciting things like bringing recycling, automating recycling on the island, hooking up the commercial stores to the AVAC system, creating the bins, connecting the bins on the street to the AVAC system, all of which a modern system would do today. No one had the funds for that. Department of Sanitation, however, woke up to the fact that there are some real functional issues with regard to the AVAC system. As you know, REOC, in an agreement 40 years ago, REOC pays for the capital improvements for the AVAC system. Department of Sanitation pays for the operations. The issues that they focused on that they've asked us to look at more fully were the operational issues. And there are a couple of things, but I want to make sure that everybody here knows how the system works conceptually. I know you've all been here for a very long time, and most of you are familiar faces, so I'm going to do this quickly, but essentially, and this will show how recycling occurs, which unfortunately is very difficult to do here. But the beauty of the system is the valves at the bottom of the inlets, so that on this island there's one vertical tube. It's all based on gravity, as you know. You don't have these outside connections, which today could be done. But in any event, the vertical tube at the bottom opens and all the waste goes through the 20-inch tube into the terminal. The terminal is where the pressure or the vacuum is generated, and it's also where the garbage winds up and is sealed. As a note for the community board in terms of some of your wider issues, what happens in the terminal of an AVAC or an Envac system is what would happen in a waste transfer station. So from the municipality's point of view, if new development were to connect to an Envac system like Cornell, like a lot of the new large-scale development, you could avoid expanding waste transfer stations. So that's not necessarily applicable for tonight, but just generally speaking, that is among the benefits. The beauty of the system and the fact that it's still functioning here has to do with the fact that it's sealed. It's a sealed system from the moment you drop the waste in, and it winds up in sealed containers. The benefit of that, Roosevelt Island experienced in 2010, 2011, that winter, there were unprecedented blizzards. The entire city was shut down, as you recall. All the garbage trucks were pushing snow. New York City had 3 weeks of garbage on the street. We're supposed to be a global city. Front page New York Times, we can't pick up our own garbage. Roosevelt Island was the only sanitation district in the city of New York with uninterrupted collections during the winter of 2010 and 2011. Similarly, it operated during Sandy, so the system is climate resilient, and that has a lot to do with the fact that it's a sealed system. The system, unfortunately, on Roosevelt Island has begun to lose its seals. So when we came in, we were asked to look at a bunch of things, and this is essentially the executive summary, the history of how we got here and what the findings were. The good news is this is the interior of a 40-year-old pipe. This one happens to be in New Jersey at Summit Plaza. We did, or Central Sub did, Roosevelt Island, Summit Plaza, that's run by Grenadier Realty in Jersey City, and Disney World in the 70s. And then it went back to Europe and Asia. But this is the interior of a 40-year-old pipe, and similarly the pipes on Roosevelt Island. So the good news about the system is the pipes are intact. They can be maintained. They have been maintained. It's probably the one area where, in fact, there's been a lot of maintenance over the 40 years inside the pipes. So this is a gentleman that's on a scooter going through the pipe in Jersey City, inspecting it, and this is a patch that had been made because there had been some leakage. So the inside of the pipe, and by the way, look how clean the inside of the pipe is, because the speed of the air that goes through these tubes just keeps them clean, just cleans them right out. So it's pretty impressive. So the good news is your pipes work. What is not working so well anymore is primarily the stuff in the terminal. And in summary, the stuff in the terminal that's not working, and I'll show you much more specifically, is reducing the efficiency of the operations, is requiring, because the suction is diminished, because the seals are not what they should be, the suction is not as strong, you're going to get increasingly more blockages. The energy consumption is enormous in there because the machinery is 40 years old. The ability to run the system remotely has been primarily lost, so there's a lot more staff in there than there needs to be. And the system is slowly wearing out. I'm not suggesting it's going to break down and stop one day. What I am suggesting is it's going to become more and more inefficient. From the government's point of view, whether it be REOC or the Department of Sanitation, that means increased energy consumption, less sustainability and environmental benefits from it, increased labor to run the system, increased blockages. And from the residents' point of view, that's the area that we should primarily be more worried about. The system inevitably will keep going down more and for longer periods of time as the parts wear out. So, and I can send a much more extensive report with these as slides for anyone who wants them. So I'm just showing you a couple of examples of the conditions. These are the valves. We checked about 32 valves. There are 12 more, now there are more because building 7 opened. We checked about 32 valves in the individual buildings, and they're in rough shape. You're going to get odors in the buildings, you're going to get leakage in the buildings. This is what the modern valves look like. So this is a valve that you would see in the Octagon, or you would see it in the new buildings in Riverwalk. And you can see that it's completely sealed, it fits properly. This would be an example if there were recycling capacity. You would have 3 of these valves and you'd have 3 vertical sheets. But this is typical of the 32 valves in the older part of the island. And this is some more examples of conditions in the terminal. This is the old computer system. For anybody who's a computer historian, it's going to be fascinating. This is the original system. There have been absolutely no significant upgrades to any of the equipment. It's a miracle. Department of Sanitation is doing a miraculous job with antiquated equipment. So this is what the old system would look like. The new system would have a new computer program so that you can see the condition in every point of the system. You can see where there might be something that's potentially going to block it. You can see if there's more coming in than anticipated, maybe you have to do an extra pull. This can show up not just on a monitor in the terminal, this can show up on a monitor on a laptop in REOC's offices. It can also be on a cell phone. The entire system can be run remotely, and this would give the people who run the system the capacity to run it 24/7. So if there's a strike, if there's a snowfall and people can't get to work, if there's a holiday, the system can be monitored, it can be adjusted, it can be maintained remotely with a new computer system, and you can troubleshoot the system. You can anticipate where there may be some problems before they occur, so you see everything that's happening. The other big area is the exhausters. The exhausters are the equipment that creates the vacuum and does all the suction. These are 40-year-old exhausters. There are 6 of them. It's incredibly hot in this room. They consume an enormous amount of energy. They are noisy. They're difficult to maintain, so that 4 new exhausters would replace the 6 old ones, but they'd also create much less energy consumption. They'd be much more reliable in terms of functioning. Again, they could be monitored remotely. And in terms of working conditions, the working conditions in the terminal are increasingly hazardous for the personnel. The heat that's generated here is really very, very unpleasant. Again, the breakdown, the air, again, because the seals are breaking, impurities, things of that sort, so that not only would this help extend the useful life of the system, but it would also improve working conditions, which increasingly are becoming much less pleasant. So what I have here is a summary of the solutions valve. It would be in 3 phases. The upgrade would guarantee that the system would continue to run. The system that was built here is very redundant. The terminal is 80% larger than a modern terminal, but the benefit to Roosevelt Island is that you've got 2 horizontal tubes, an east side and a west side, which typically is not built. Right now, basically we just use 1 horizontal tube. But as a result of having the 2 tubes, you could shut down one side of the system and run the entire community through the other side of the system as you upgrade that one. And then when that one's upgraded, reverse everything, run everything through the upgraded part as you fix the remaining older part of the system. So there should be no interruption of service. The basic cost is about $2 million, which is a 4-year payback. It would save about $500,000 in operating costs for the Department of Sanitation, reduced energy, reduced staffing, while it improves the quality of the service to the residents. Again, you can monitor it 24/7. You can be assured that there are fewer breakdowns in the system, etc. And it extends the useful life. The original useful life for this system is 30 years. It is now the 40th year. So again, we're extremely proud of the system. It has far exceeded its useful life. But you got a lot of more decades to live and enjoy Roosevelt Island, and somebody's got to worry about extending the useful life of the system. So that basically is my presentation. There are summaries of the costs and specifics if anybody cares to take a look at them. Yes?